I'm really glad that you're here. It's every year I also say how nervous I get just before this starts because it's a conglomeration of poems. I know some of the people reading. I don't know some of the people reading. I know I have read all of the poems. Some of them are new to me. They're wonderful. And every year it seems like, how can this possibly come together into one coherent whole? And by some total miracle, it does. And it's really a wonderful program we have today. I was thinking, and I might have said this last year too, it seems to me that it would be a wonderful thing if Congress would have a favorite poem project. Wouldn't it? And because I think if every senator and representative brought in a favorite poem, they may not love each other, but I think at least they would listen to each other and respect each other. So I had this thought on Friday, and I actually wrote to Seth Moulton, because I figured he wants to be president, right? So, and it was amazing. And I got a response, not from him, from his lackey, but I got a fast response. And he said, Congressman Moulton requires 2 to 3 weeks of advance notice to be somewhere. So next year, somebody remind me, and if any of you have any clout with Congress, by all means, I'm happy to go down there and prep them, and get them to do it. So that's my pitch for Congress. The only other thing I would say is, I know some of you have never been here before, and some of you have been here before. So if you're wondering, when I organized the program, when I first started doing this, at first I put the mayor first, and then the city councilor, and then the superintendent of schools, and some hierarchy that I kind of had in my mind. And after a couple of years, I thought, no, this is wrong, because poetry is this great equalizer. So for this next 90 minutes, whether you're the mayor, only for this next 90 minutes, or a third grader, it really doesn't matter. Just for these 90 minutes, because each of you has found a poem and chosen a poem that speaks to you in some way and that really feels important to you. So that's really all I have to say. It's a long, hopefully everyone's been instructed to not take more than 3 minutes. So it won't be a terribly long poem, but I don't want to take the time. Many people helped make this happen. They're all, I hope I didn't forget anyone, they're all thanked on the back of your program. So read the back of your program and you'll have all the thank yous. So without further ado, I'm not going to get up and introduce each person. Everybody can introduce themselves, say what they need to say. I will say one thing about our first speaker, though, Sophia, who first read at the Favorite Poem Project when I think she was in either 3rd or 4th grade, she can tell you. And she is having a comeback now as a rising high school senior. So she'll start the program and we'll go from there. So Sophia, you're on.
Hello. Yeah, I was 3rd grade, was the last time I was here, so I was like 9 years old. Now I'm 17, and this is a poem that I found when I was looking for a poem, and I was really frustrated because I couldn't find one, so I went into the search bar and put in poems, and this is the first thing that came up. So this is Poems by Nikki Grimes, and it really resonated with me, so that too. I am hardly ever able to sort through my memories and come away whole or untroubled. It is difficult to sift through the stones, the weighty moments, and know which is rare gem, which raw coal, which worthless shale or slate. So, one by one, I drag them across the page, and when one cuts into the white, leaves a trail of blood, no matter how narrow the stream, then I know. I found the real thing. The diamond, one of the priceless gems my pain produced. There, I say, is a memory worth keeping.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah!
My name is Bruce Menon, and I love this poem by Billy Collins for several reasons. One is that the protagonist is sort of one of those people who asks questions. Sometimes they're awkward questions, but he really wants to know what makes a thing a thing. And he's also very compassionate, or she is very compassionate. And the second reason is it reminds me of how music is so closely tied to our experiences. Everybody's got music that, oh, I remember what I was doing when I did that. So it's called I Chopped Some Parsley While Listening to Art Blakey's version of Three Blind Mice. And I start wondering how they came to be blind. If it was congenital, they could be brothers and sisters. And I think of their poor mother brooding over her sightless young triplets. Or was it a common accident? All three caught in a searing explosion, a firework perhaps? If not, if each came to his or her blindness separately, how did they ever manage to find one another? Wouldn't it be difficult for a blind mouse to locate even one fellow mouse with vision, let alone other blind ones? And how, in their tiny darkness, could they possibly have run into the farmer's wife? Or else anybody's wife, for that matter. Not to mention why. Oh, just so she could cut off their tails with a carving knife is the cynic's answer. But the thought of them without eyes and now without tails to trail through the moist grass or slip around the corner of the baseboard has this cynic who always lounges within me up off his couch and at the window trying to hide the rising softness that he feels. By now I'm on to dicing an onion, which might account for the wet stinging in my own eyes, though Freddie Hubbard's mournful trumpet on Blue Moon, which happens to be the next cut, cannot be said to be making matters any better.
Sorry, I'm holding things up in the back there. Quick note about Mrs. Zabo. Mrs. Zabo was one of 3 teachers still at the high school that was there when I was in high school. I graduated in 1993, so keep at it, Mrs. Zabo. They're lucky to have you. So I picked a poem by George Lunt. George Lunt was born in Newburyport in 1803, and he went on to an illustrious career as an attorney for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he was also at the State House in Boston. And he wrote a poem called Requiem about a fallen soldier. So I am dedicating this poem to Derek Hines. Yesterday we had our Flag Day 5K, really wonderful event. If you've never checked it out, please check it out next year. I think they had over 1,300 runners, but just a remarkable story about a Newburyport family and a story around service and sacrifice. So this is Requiem. Breathe. Trumpets breathe slow notes of saddest wailing. Sadly responsive peal, ye muffled drums. Comrades, with downcast eyes and banners trailing, attend him home, the youthful warrior comes. Upon his shield returning, born from the field of battle where he fell. Glory and grief together, clasped in mourning, his fame, his fate, with sobs exulting tell. Wrap round his breast the flag his breast defended, his country's flag in battle's front unrolled. For it he died, on earth forever ended. His brave young life lives in each sacred fold. With proud, fond tears by tinge of shame untainted, bear him and lay him gently in his grave. Above the hero write the young half-sainted. His country asked his life he gave. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Connie Preston. I'm a city councilor here in Newburyport. I'm also very lucky to be Deb and Tom Zabo's next door neighbor. So when I got the email about this, I said, how in God's name am I ever going to get out of this one? So, I talked to Deb. I'm like the most left-brained person you'll ever know. I'm a biochemist. And I said, the poems and poetry are really not my thing. And she's like, well, let's find something you're passionate about and we can go from there. So We started with dogs, but I used to be the chair of the tree commission here in town, and so I ended up with Trees by Joyce Kilmer. I think I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the sweet earth's flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with the rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alex Matthews. I am the soon-to-be rabbi at Congregation Avas Achim in Newburyport. I don't feel like I've done anything yet to garner applause, but thank you. This is my second year participating in the Favorite Poem Project, and last year, dear friend and congregant Sharon Whitner, who is sitting in the back, said, "Alex, if you're going to do this again, you have to read a poem in Hebrew." And I have not yet necessarily learned how to say no, so I did my best to find something that spoke to me this year that spoke well to her. And so I chose a poem by, I actually have a favorite poet who writes in Hebrew. His name is Yehuda Amichai. And in Hebrew, the title is Elim Mitchalfim Hatfilot Nisharot La'ad. God's change, prayers are here to stay. And I feel like my job is all about kind of balancing the tradition and the history with what is new and changing and different about us. And so I wanted to share it with you this morning. I'm going to read it first in Hebrew, then in English, but the Hebrew first so that the mystery of the language kind of gets to sit with you for a moment or two. Ra'iti barachov be'erev kayitz, ra'iti isha shekatva milim al niyar parus al delet eitz ne'ula. וקיפלה ושמה בין דלת למזוזה והלכה לה. ולא ראיתי את פניה ולא את פני האיש שיקרא את הכתוב ולא ראיתי את המילים. על שולחני מונחת אבן שכתוב עליו אמן, שבר מצבה, שארית מבית קברות יהודי שנחרב לפני כ1,000 שנים בעיר שבה נולדתי. מילה אחת, אמן, חרוטה עמוק באבן. אמן קשה וסופי על כל שהיה ולא ישוב. אמן רך ומזמר כמו בתפילה. אמן ואמן וכן יהי רצון. מצבות נשברות, מילים חולפות, מילים נשכחות, שפתיים שאמרו אותן הפכו עפר, שפות מתות כבני אדם, שפות אחרות קמות לתחייה, אלים בשמיים משתנים, אלים מתחלפים, התפילות נשארות לעד. God's change, prayers are here to stay. In the street on a summer evening, I saw a woman writing on a piece of paper spread out against a locked wooden door. She folded it, tucked it between door and doorpost, and went on her way. And I didn't see her face, nor the face of the man who would read what she had written, and I didn't see the words. On my desk lies a stone with the word Amen on it, a fragment of a tombstone, a remnant from a Jewish graveyard, destroyed 1,000 years ago in the town where I was born. One word, Amen, carved deep into the stone. A final hard Amen for all that was and never will return. A soft singing Amen as in prayer. Amen and Amen, may it come to pass. Tombstones crumble, they say, words tumble, words fade away. The tongues that spoke them turn to dust. Languages die as people do, some languages rise again. Gods change up in heaven, gods get replaced, prayers are here to stay.
So also, since you want to all get up together, and you don't need the podium, do you?
Give it.
Hi, my name is Nancy Moore, and today I'm going to be reading Trees by Shel Silverstein. I really liked this poem because my brother and I had a huge tree in our backyard, and we had to chop it down last year, and reading this poem just makes me feel joyful and happy. A tree house, a free house, a secret you and me house, a high up in the leafy branches, perfect as can be house. A street house, a neat house, and be sure to wipe your feet house. That's not my kind of house at all. Let's go live in a tree house.
Hello, my name is Michael LeBlanc. This is my the poem I'm going to be reading is called Maytime Magic. This is my favorite poem because it shows the life of a flower, and and me and my mom love planting, so this is just my favorite poem. A little seed for me to sow, a little earth to make it grow, a little hole, a little pat, a little wish, and that is that. A little sun, a little shower, a little while, and then a flower.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Spinney, and the poem I'm doing is called Bird Talk by Eileen Fisher. The reason I love this poem is because I love how birds talk to each other and compare themselves to humans. Here it is. Thanks said the robin, thanks said the jay, sitting in a garden talking one day. Think about people, the way they grow. They don't have feathers at all, you know. They don't eat beetles, they don't grow wings. They don't like sitting on wires and things. Thanks said the robin, thanks said the jay. Aren't people funny to be that way? My name is Maddie Shapiro. I'm going to read The Dentist Pulled My Teeth Out by Ken Nesbitt. This is my favorite poem because it is fiction, and I like fiction poems more than realistic poems because they can be funnier. The dentist pulled my teeth out and thought it was such fun. He grabbed his pliers and dental pries and pulled another one. Yippee, hooray, what awesome fun, he shouted out with glee. He grinned a grin, then went back in and pulled out number 3. Then number 4 and number 5 and number 6 and 7 were followed by a cheerful cry of 8, 9, 10, 11. He took a few more from the top and some from underneath. He yanked them fast until at last he pulled out all my teeth. Without my teeth, I cannot chew. I just eat soup and mush. But don't be sad. I'm kind of glad I'll never have to brush.
My name is Eloise Estrado, and I'm reading a poem called The Me Who with Exactly What by Shel Silverstein. I chose this poem because it's funny. I love how the me who talks with the person is like, what? And the me who is like, yes. I love this poem again. It's really funny. Knock, knock. Who's there? Me. Me who? That's right. What's right? Me who? That's what I want to know. What's what you want to know? Me who? Yes, exactly. Exactly what? Yes, I have an exactly what on a chain. Exactly what on a chain? Yes. Yes what? No, exactly what? That's what I want to know. I told you exactly what. Exactly what? Yes. Yes what? Yes, it's with me. What's with you? Exactly what? That's with me. Me who? Yes. Go away. Knock knock.
All right. Well, at least the mic's at the right height. Let's have another round of applause for our students. Amazing. Awesome job. So I have the privilege of being back. I think last year I was on the second page, so I'm working my way up. I'm on the first page. This is a poem from my daughter. I read one last year, and believe it or not, we had no idea. My daughter's an English major, and she's been writing short stories and poems, so I pulled one out. So this poem was when she was in high school, and I selected this because of the beautiful imagery and dynamic last line. That's not true. I stole that from Deb Szabo when I shared the poem, and that's her words. I have no idea what I'm talking about, so. But it is pretty cool. All right. This poem is titled Apples. I remember when I was young, my hair had red and golden hues. There was a picture of me that shows it hanging in my dad's room. My young hair reminds me of the color of your coat. You can be so many things. A golden, ruby, yellow with highlights of sunset, or a sultry cardinal with a pearly white inside. I walk around Salem in the mist of October, and I see you with a candy smile, a delicacy of Halloween in my haunted hometown. You're sweet with a crunch and sometimes covered in caramel. You can be picked from the trees named apples. You are the star of a fall show. We go to the orchard every year in hopes to find the perfect one of you. My whole day is spent searching until I find you in the brilliant afternoon light. The perfect pick hangs from the tree so effortlessly, like it was waiting for me to come. I pick you off the weighted branch. I put you safely in the basket of my adolescent. As I walk home with my prize pick, the crisp fall air hits my face as to tell me, take a bite. Thank you.
Hello. My poem is pretty short because I learned how to speak Hindi after I moved to India. It was after 4th grade, and so this was the extent of what I could speak and memorize. I said this poem at a school poem recital as well, but it was in India, so it had to be in Hindi, and like I said, this is pretty much the extent of what I can memorize. So it's called Honge Kamyab, which means that we will be successful. So the poem is basically just words of affirmation. I'll say it first in Hindi and then I'll say it in English. Also give a shout out to my mom because she helped translate it. Honge Kamyab, hum honge kamyab ek din. Man hai vishwas, pura hai vishwas. Hum honge kamyab ek din. Hum chalenge saath saath, dal haathon mein haath. हम चलेंगे साथ साथ एक दिन मन है मैं है विश्वास पूरा है विश्वास हम चलेंगे साथ साथ एक दिन. And then in English it basically the title is we will be successful one day. In my mind I know wholeheartedly we will be successful. We will walk together hand in hand. We will travel together. I know with no doubt that we will be successful one day.
Hello, I'm Bronson de Stadler. This is my first time at the project. I'm a retired social worker and longtime Newburyport resident. The poem I chose is Changeling by Rina Espaillat, and the story behind my choice is that I recently joined the board of the Newburyport Chamber Music Festival, and the festival's high point this year is a final concert celebrating Rina's 90th birthday, with an original piece of music by composer John Deek set to the lyrics of her poem, The Jury. And actually, I think there are some of these postcards up at the table that you can see, which have that, and also have Rina's picture on the back. I was drawn to the poem Changeling. It's an early work from 1991. To be honest, I didn't understand the poem at first. I also have to confess that I never read her poems until I joined the board of the Chamber Music Festival, so I began reading as many as I could. As I said, this is an early work, and I didn't really understand it. It's a complex poem, but after a few readings, I saw it was a poem of self-reflection and self-acceptance. I think it refers to the poet looking at herself and trying to discern how much of her mother is in her, how much is just memory, and how much are traces beyond her recall. I imagine she's standing in front of a mirror. I want to tell myself she is not you, this sullen woman wearing mama's eyes, all wrong, whose every gesture rings untrue, and yet familiar. In your harsh disguise, I sometimes need to find you. Sometimes fear I will, if I look closely into her. I want to tell myself you are not here, trapped in this parody of what you were. But love was never safe. It lives on danger, finds what can't be found by any other power on earth or over it. This stranger is you, is all there is. My mother whose gentle face is gone beyond recall, and I must love you so, or not at all. I have some copies of the poem if you'd like them.
I'm Riley. I'm from Mrs. Zabo's creative writing class, and I'm going to read a poem by Maya Angelou, who is obviously an incredible author. But this poem in particular I've always really liked because she reflects on her own age and long life, which kind of allows me to look ahead to my own. And she talks about dying as sort of an amenity to life, which to me represents bravery and peace and finding the beauty in hard things. So this is The Lesson by Maya Angelou. The lesson. I keep on dying again. Veins collapse, opening like the small fists of sleeping children. Memory of old tombs, rotting flesh and worms do not convince me against the challenge. The years and cold defeat live deep in lines along my face. They dull my eyes, yet I keep on dying because I love to live.
Hi, my name is Jan Swindlehurst, and the poem I chose to read is called Carnies. And carnies is a term used to refer to carnival workers. And I think that this poem captures young girls on the cusp of becoming young women, curious, maybe a little scared, and maybe a little intoxicated by the excitement and challenges of adulthood. I remember being 14 and walking with my best friend Kathy to a carnival that seemed to magically appear every night during the summer in a potato field on Pulaski Road in my hometown of Huntington, Long Island in New York. Carnies by Deborah Alberry. This is what we went for, Holly and I, not for the rides or the games we couldn't win. What were we then, 14, 15, wearing cutoffs and our brother's work shirts? Holly tossing her hair as we walked down the midway, her talking big and me saying nothing, a half a step behind her. But don't you know how deep summer crawls inside you in a town like that? You can't keep still. You need fast, fresh air from another place. And if boys your own age try showing off you there, you nod and shrug, but keep glancing away. You look over at the quick swipes of grease on the jeans of some muscled roustabout, unlocking the safety bars on the octopus. You watch the flutter of his t-shirt and the travel of his eyes. And when he looks at you, you're caught, not knowing what to do and afraid to smile. You just move on through that broken down music. Holly and I, we took our time getting on and off those rides. We craved that coolness, just an extra second airborne, scrambling summer in Main Street, and a stranger's level gaze. And you bet we take them home with us. They're soft goddams that followed us out, and wouldn't we toss all night with them too?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lisa Maria Polito. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. It's my first time here, so thank you for having me. I like to listen to poetry. I really don't have a favorite poet, but I found this poem and it reminded me of something my father would always say to me, which is live your life with integrity. So that's why I chose this poem called The Person. But remember, it's not the voice, it's not the looks, it's not the clothes you adorn, nor the color of your skin. It's about the character, the personality, the integrity for which you carry yourself, face and deal the world with. That is you, that is me, that is everyone, that is the person. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jack Santos, and I knew the moment Deb said she was doing this again this year who my poet would be. I'm sure you've all seen her too. She was at the inauguration, just an amazing young lady. I wasn't sure what the poem would be until a few days after Uvalde, and it's a poem about hurt and healing and hope. Hymn for the Hurting by Amanda Gorman. Everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We've burdened to live out these days, while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost.
Hi, my name is Tula Sullivan. I'm also in Zabo's creative writing class. And a couple weeks ago, I chose this poem for my lit class. It's about the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and I chose it because my family is from New Orleans and had to evacuate shortly after I was born. So it really spoke to me, and I also just love the rhythm of it. So this is Where Our Protests Sound by Lynell Moyes. Jazz is underwater, Vodou Atlantis mute, aborted ultrasound, fetal fish in flood. Haiti's first cousin, forcibly kissed by a hurricane called Katrina. Hot winds come in one fat Tuesday, old levee leak explodes. Fixing funds gone to Homeland Security, soldiers stationed in Iraq said jazz is underwater, days like laissez-faire, manna does not fall, saviors do not save. Hunger prays to rage for resilience. Improvisational genius implodes. Anarchy duets with despair. Bassist fingers lute. Nimble like a deft pianist, said Vodou Atlantis mute. The fragile eardrums of instant orphans get inundated with someone else's mama's soprano saxophone screams. Meanwhile, Televised tenor voices report monotonous drone to drown out the deafening beat of funeral marchers. Can't swim. Bloated trumpet carcasses. A singer swallows human sewage. Her last note, a curse on America. Aborted ultrasound. Cacophonous warnings scatter brains. Pedestrians hear calls to evacuate, escape, and think, how fast can on foot run? The poor, the weary, just drown. Abandoned elders just drown. People in wheelchairs just drown. The sick in bed cannot leave. Their doctors stay behind too. New emergencies engulf the ER rooms. Swamped hospitals ain't hostels, ain't shelters. Resources slim like hope. Nurses stay behind too. Their loyal partners will not leave. Ill-fated rejects just drown, said fetal fish in flood. Outside, a breaking willow weeps like a father on his rooftop, murmuring his wife's last words. Clutch tight to our babies, and let me die, she had pleaded. You can't hold on to us all, let me die. She too, like jazz, is underwater. Her love, her certainty will haunt him. Their children's survival, a scar. Sanity also loses its grip, guilt weight like cold, wet clothes. 80% of New Orleans submerged. Debris lingers, disease looms, said days like laissez-faire. Manna does not fall. Shock battles suicide thoughts. Some thirsty throats cope, manage dirges in Cajun, in Zydeco. Out-of-state kin can't get through. Refugees. Refugees remember ruined homes. A preacher remembers the book of Revelations, still saviors wait to save. And the living wade with the countless dead as a wealthy president flies overhead, up where brown people look like spoiled jambalaya stewing from a distance in their down there distress. Said he's free, high up, far up, vacation fresh, eagle up and away from the place where our protest sound started, still sings American music gurgling cyclo litanies. Man cannot prevent, the man cannot hear.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Councillor Jenny Donahue, representing Ward 2 in Newburyport. This is my first year participating. I would like to invite you all on a journey deep into my heart where the love for my literary hero will forever reside. Through life and circumstance and a mutual friend, my hero was once told of my love for his writing. He not only thanked me, but he sent me books from his private library. I knew that in that moment, without the shadow of a doubt, that as humans, we are meant to be humble. With many fans throughout the years and across the world in every decade, known for his writing in science fiction and fiction, today I would like to bring you something different, a poem by Mr. Ray Bradbury. Farewell, Summer. Farewell, Summer. Hear the words, the dust enchantments on the tongue and tamping ear, and drumming veins along the neck. A reckoning of time now spells itself, and all of summer funnels in the glass and heaps itself to pollen sands. Those lands where boys and dogs have traveled, ditching girls and weaker boys and careless dogs, now tilt and empty drain themselves to schools. The ruleless meadows now know only quail or autumn sparrow. The harrowing of long grass by bare feet is done. The self-made streets of summer shut and close, and the Indian paths grow up with weed. Where once the need of children, aimless in free time, built spokes for summer's wheel, and crushed the symbols of God's silence speaking in the fields. Those garter snakes, pure hieroglyphs that yield a mystery and another, as driven by herd of elephant beast boys, they scribble write their lives in tongueless shapes, running for cover. And still the wind that touches dead flowers by the road and shakes the rust in a raining blood of dry sow. Down the day and the drowning day's twilight, and the last shimmer of sun and glimmer of first star on the hedgehog bristling harvest fields, where October's game takes over, from the running mobs of August and the rampant clover, that mob which once shunned schools and overran the rules of meadowgrass, now gone, alas, and the wind a rustle and a whisper. In the dusking hour, in the fading flower, in the dying fall of a summer dream, the gleam which shakes from rust-spilled stem, recalling the children, remembering them, and whispering a tune to an antique drummer, hear the words throbbed by autumn's birds, farewell, summer, and again, summer, farewell, and at last, farewell, summer.
I'm Sarah Ward, and I chose this poem because I needed to live by it. It's by Pablo Neruda, and I will read two pieces. One is his poem, Each Day Falls, but the next will be a quote from where that arose from. If each day falls inside each night, there exists a well where clarity is imprisoned. We need to sit on the rim of the well of darkness and fish for the fallen light with patience. This is a quote from where that's drawn from by Jay Griffiths in A Country Called Childhood. Quote, "There was a creek far down the slope, and the sound of its waters came up to me. It was my childhood saying goodbye. I grew up in this town. My poetry was born between the hill and the river. It took its voice from the rain, and like the river, its voice steeped itself in the forests. And now, on the road to freedom, I could hear the voice of the water that had taught me to sing." Pablo Neruda.
Hello. My name is Ebony Martino, and I'm reading a poem by Robert Burns. It's titled To a Mouse, and it really reminds me of my cat, who I call Mouse because she's small and gray, and she kind of inspires a lot of my poetry, and I find it very meaningful. The meaning of the poem is kind of about man's domination over nature and how to find peace within that with nature. So, and it's a Scottish poem, so I will be reading it in a Scottish accent. So yeah. We sleekit Cairn timorous beastie, O what a panic's in thy breasty, thou need na start a was so hasty, with bicker and brattle, I wad be laith to rin a chase thee with murder and pattle. I'm truly sorry man's domination has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt no whiles but they may thieve, what then, poor beastie, thou mun leave? A daminaker in a thrave is a smart request, I get to blessing with the lave and never miss it. Thy wee bit housey chew and ruin, it silly was the winds are strewing, and nothing now a big new ain, a frog and green, a bleak December's winds and soon, blast nella keen. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winters coming fast, a cosy here beneath the blast, thou thought to dwell till crash, the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stibble has cost thee mony a weary nibble, now thou turned out for thy trouble, but how's are hauled to thou a winter's sleety dribble, and Crunach called. But Moosey, thou art no thy lane, in proving force it may be vain, the best laid schemes o' mice and men, gang aft dagly, and let us nothing but grief and pain, for promised joy. Still thou art blessed compared with me, the present only toucheth thee, but ock I backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward though I cannot see, I guess in fear.
Hello, I'm Sarah Hall. So when I was invited to participate today, I immediately said yes because I've attended in the past and I love poetry. And then I realized I didn't have a favorite poem or even a favorite poet, and my selection was due the next day. So undaunted, I gathered several volumes of poetry and must have read well over 100, many of which were lovely and funny and thoughtful and sweet, but I needed the one that was really worthy of the my favorite poem label. So finally I found one in a book by Mary Oliver, and I love this one because it's a poem about poems, about the wide range of things that a poem can be, and also the idea of a poem being something that has a will and a life of its own, independent of the poet. That was very appealing to me and seemed very appropriate for today. So, That Little Beast by Mary Oliver. That pretty little beast, a poem, has a mind of its own. Sometimes I want it to crave apples, but it wants red meat. Sometimes I want to walk peacefully on the shore, and it wants to take off all its clothes and dive in. Sometimes I want to use small words and make them important, and it starts shouting the dictionary, the opportunities. Sometimes I want to sum up and give thanks, putting things in order. And it starts dancing around the room on 4 furry legs, laughing and calling me outrageous. But sometimes, when I'm thinking about you, and no doubt smiling, it sits down quietly, one paw under its chin, and just listens.
Hi, I'm Kevin. Today I'm 8 and I love playing baseball. So today, ... I'm gonna read some baseball poems to you.
Great.
Pitcher. I'm the curveball creator, the man on the mound. I'm the great devastator, where fastballs are found. I'm the slippery slider, my sinker just plummets. I'm as sly as a spider, my riser climbs summits. I'm the scourge of all hitters. the starter of the starter of slumps. I make batters bitter, turn bats into stumps. I'm the strikeout collector, you'll only hit air, the slim lead protector. Beware, beware. Fans. Fans are fanatic. They yell and they scream. They hoot and they holler in language extreme. They rave and they wave and they say things sarcastic. But if you're a player, then fans are fantastic. Number 3. A baseball. Stitch it, pitch it, drive it, ditch it, pound it, ground it, bounce it, bound it, bash it, smash it, crash it, mash it, hit it, split it. Been there, did it.
It's a cruel thing. I'll do it this way. It's a cruel thing to make me go after him. Thanks, Deb. Appreciate that. All right, my name is Max Shank, and my wife Kathleen and I are Newburyport residents as well. This is my first time doing this, so I apologize for any missteps. But thank you, Deb, for the opportunity. This is a poem by Linda Paston called Imaginary Conversation, and the thing I love about it is it hits 2 points that I love in poems, which is there are themes that are common that we're all going to recognize, especially those of us who are of a certain age, and then it also gives you a path to a new view and way of seeing things. So Imaginary Conversation by Linda Paston, excuse me. You tell me to live each day as if it were my last. This is in the kitchen where before coffee I complain of the day ahead, that obstacle race of minutes and hours, grocery stores and doctors. But why the last, I ask? Why not live each day as if it were the first? All raw astonishment, Eve rubbing her eyes, awake that first morning, the sun coming up like an ingenue in the east. You grind the coffee with the small roar of a mind trying to clear itself. I set the table, glance out the window where dew has baptized every living surface. Thank you. I'm doing this because I know the height of the next poet.
So that was my husband, Max. And now I have the honor of reading one of Max's poem, Tudor Love.
It's about nobody in particular. I'm just warning you now.
And Max is one of my favorite poets. I mean, he works as a health director for the city of Gloucester, and he has a very busy professional life. And when he writes poetry, to me, it's like he opens a treasure chest and reveals these precious, beautiful words. Some of them are very profound and some of them are very funny. And this is a very interesting poem that he actually posted on Facebook, and then I read it and everyone I know is saying, was that you? And I'm thinking, yes! So it is. And I have to say that we have just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary, and I'm so grateful to him. And that Rena Espelot actually married us 17 years ago and wrote this beautiful poem for our wedding, which was wonderful. But this is a very different poem. This is called Tudor Love. So lying in bed, I think of Henry VIII and wonder if Anne Boleyn snored. Had young Anne lost her head, not for another love or need of an heir, but because she suffered from sleep apnea, undiagnosed for 500 years. As he fretted into the night, over the wealth of the church and the power of Spain, would Henry hear puffs of gas that passed between the lace-clad buttocks of his latest love, Jane Seymour, or the roar of a distal battle cannon muffled by the opulent weight of their silk and edge du vin. After Cromwell met his fate, did Catherine Howard seen her own, with covers pulled across the bed to create a cocoon against the cold, but all the while not aware that she left old poor Henry's ulcerous legs exposed to the cold, cruel airs of Windsor? Could he close his eyes in silent prayer while servants shuffled across cold stones and Catherine Parr leaped out of bed, yet with another leg cramp?
Hi, my name is Anna Zema, and I've lived here for a few decades, and I'm grateful to be invited to be with fellow poetry lovers. Thank you, Debbie. It's always very touching to be here. I love listening to so many different voices, and all connected to music, as several of you have noted. I brought a French poem because I'm French, but also because there is something profoundly touching in hearing a voice from the 13th century describe things that some of us might have experienced. They say love is a sweet thing, but I do not know its sweetness. All joy is bound in it, but I've never felt any good from love. Alas, my suffering is not eased, but he who dares lament drives off his grief. He can douse his pain the sooner. It's an advertisement for medieval therapy. I complain because he has betrayed me. He hurt me so much. Once I was kissed by him, and I made him the master of my love. But some people kiss without loving at all. Kisses have betrayed many a lover. He who dares lament drives off his grief. He can douse his pain the sooner. L'on dit qu'amour est douce chose, mais je n'en connais la douceur. Toute jouée m'en est enclose, Nens ne sentit nul bien d'amour. Las, mes mal ne se reposent, si m'en déplaint et fac l'amour, mère ébattue qui pleurer n'ose, n'en pleurant dire sa douleur. C'est duel l'épar qui s'ose plaindre, plutôt on peut son mal éteindre. De ce me plaindre qu'il m'a trahi, c'en est trop grande la recueillir. Quand je, qui suis léal ami, me trui amour en mon ami, je fus ainsi de lui baisir, si le fit de ma mot saisie, mais telle baise qui n'aime mieux, baisier ont maintement trahi. C'est de l'épar qui s'ose plaindre, plutôt on peut son mal éteindre. Être cuidé de lui aimer quand entre ses bras me tenait, comme pluière d'amour grévée à son parler, me refaisait. À s'avouer hier 6 années, comme Pyramus quand il mourait, navré en son flanc de s'épée, au notice baie, les yeux ouvrés. C'est de l'épar qui s'ose plaindre, plutôt on peut son mal éteindre.
Hello. I'm another one of Mrs. Zava's students. And this spring we did our Writing Out Racism unit with Harlem 125. And one poet we learned about was Audre Lorde, and I really grew attached to her. So this is one of her poems. I just want to do a disclaimer. It's very windy. That this is written from the perspective of being a black person, and I, as a white person, obviously have no idea what it feels like, but I just thought it was a powerful message and an important one to read. So this is A Litany for Survival by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going, in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who are imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jan Swindlehurst's husband. Poems can be joyful and they can be painful. This one is a bit painful and then optimistic. In 2016, 3 months before a gunman killed 49 people at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Maggie Smith, the poet Maggie Smith, not the other one, the poet Maggie Smith was sitting in a Starbucks in Ohio writing this poem that I'm going to read for you this afternoon. I was moved by her description of a parent trying to sell the world to her child without lying about the awful realities that we all have to face. That terrible mass shooting helped the poem to go viral, and with the unfortunate events in those 6 years that have followed, it still resonates today as it did then. Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Life is short, though I keep this for my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in a thousand delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways. I'll keep this for my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this for my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, and sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this for my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking through a real shithole chirps about the good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. Thank you.
Nadia, are you here somewhere? Is that a response? Nadia? No, Nadia. Okay.
Sorry for being late. Well, this is an amazing opportunity to be here and do this poem thing. I'm nervous, of course. This poem was a choice because it actually speaks for me. It's about a connection between you and your loved ones when you can't be physically with them, and your thoughts, your memories they build this bridge between you and your loved ones. The poem is Wings. I'm gonna read it on Ukrainian. Ай, правда, крилатим ґрунту не треба. Землі немає, то буде небо. Не буде поля, то буде воля. Не буде пари, то будуть хмари. У цьому, напевно, є правда пташина. А як же людина? А що ж людина? Живе на землі, сама не літає. А крила має. Вони ті крила, не спухане з пір'я. Вони з чесноти і з правди, з довір'я. У когось щирості в коханні, у когось вічного поривання, у когось щирості до роботи, у когось щедрості до турботи, у когось з мрії, у когось з надії, у когось із пісні або зі мрії. Людина нібито не літає, а крила має. Who said we never fly if feeling take us so high? Thank you. Thank you. And I want to invite all of you to join our event. I made a lot of food. They're all my family recipes. I was on the phone with my mother during last 2 weeks making up the new, not new recipes, I mean, because we had an event in April and this is going to be a summer menu. And so I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Yes, you probably don't want to hear another poem after that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie, for organizing this fabulous event. We've all thanked you, but boy, 20 years. I'm sure we all feel inspired, and more inspired even now as it's ending, to listen to everyone read, and it's such an honor to be included. Not many people said their age, but I sort of wrote it down, so I'll tell you. I'm 71, and my granddaughter once said that that's almost 100. She's older now. I love science and math. I retired from a career I love in optometry, so I began writing poetry when I learned I was about to become a grandmother, never knowing that they're bad at math. I followed my son and his family to Newburyport 10 years ago and took my first poetry writing course, and the teacher was Rena P. Espaillat. Here I am, at least the third person to find the connection with Rena. I fell in love with her, as we all know, everyone does. And I fell in love with poetry in Newburyport. And it's already been said, but it's worth saying twice, Rena turned 90 this year. I love the private arguments, and probably many of us do, that she has about life and loves to write in verse. It's so hard to choose my favorite of her poems, but I will read one that's the closing poem of one of her two most recent books, And After All. This one is a Shakespearean sonnet, so those who are poets might be able to hear the rhymes, but she's very sneaky with them. In this poem, she chats with time. She's great with dialogue, and I hope I can match her ability to some degree in reading the poem to you. I am going to be two characters. In this poem, she chats with time. And I think of all the poems that you've read, how time, especially the person who just read, and she made me think, I hope that time is in Ukraine's favor. So many in the world, so many governments have offered help and have promised to ship help, and we just hope it all arrives in time. So in this conversation, Rena shows her wisdom and her wit and her deep insight into what matters to all of us. Let's see what happens. The bargain. As if ashamed, time said, I'll tell you what, I can't give anything back, but how about I teach you how to almost do without the goods I've repossessed so far. How's that? Well, aren't you all heart? I said. One hand makes off with the silverware, and then the other opens to lend me back again one plastic spoon. I don't understand. I'm not a bad sort, time said. You'll see. But this last offer won't be good forever. There's so much to reclaim. More bonds to sever, lights to put out, and speech, and memory. Trinkets you'll need before I strip you naked. Do reconsider. And I said, I'll take it. Thank you, Rena. Well, that brings our program to a close. I'm always kind of like a blubbering idiot by the end, so I should say anything I want to at the beginning. But I think we should give all of our readers who were, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? A big round of applause. Also, although Sean Reardon mentioned that I'm one of the 3 remaining teachers at Newburyport High School since he was there, I forgot to say that I taught Mrs. Olson, so I take some credit for these kids. And the last thing I have to say is, so the students at Poetry Soup put together every year a Poetry Soup magazine. And part of why it's so wonderful, well, mostly it's wonderful because the students are wonderful, which should be obvious to everybody, but we also include our guest speakers. And we're fortunate to get some funding from the NEF, and so the students sell the magazines so that we can get guest speakers not only from the wonderful local powwows, but also from the greater Boston area. So in the Poetry Soup magazines are both our wonderful guest speakers alongside our wonderful students. The 2022 Poetry Soup magazine, edited by Kate Pomeroy, who's waving it up and down now wildly, is hot off the press. Kate and I are the only people who have it. And unfortunately, there was a whole box of 2019 Poetry Soups magazines that I thought we sold, but I found them in the closet. So here is an incredible deal for you. You can give us any amount of money you want, and we are donating it all to the Ukrainian event that's happening right now here after us. So there's a little bucket there, or there are some wonderful students, reliable students there. You can give them any amount of money and take as many magazines as you want and read them. I mean, don't take them if you're going to throw them out, you know, obviously. That would not be good. And we can always give them to younger children. So, but I would encourage you to read them because I think you'll find them very inspiring. And I hope you all found this entire event inspiring. And I hope you all want to just go run home and read as many poems as you can. If not, actually reread the ones on the program, because those are real winners. Some of them you can read again and again and again and just fall more and more in love with them. So thank you all so much for coming. I hope you feel enriched, and